Hello, football nerds. It's your host, Steve Money, back here for yet another college football pick'em. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I know that I missed out on last week. We sort of got pigeonholed with a lot of stuff going on in my life, obviously work, personal matters, stuff going on in everybody's life. Everybody sort of just gets pinned down with something, some way, shape, form, and fashion in their life. But hey, look, college football is back. Week 2 is right around the corner this weekend. And what better way to do it then come out with my game picks here for our second year doing this. Obviously, if you want to go back and listen or watch some of my other content, it's exclusively right here on the channel. Of course, you can go tune into the podcast over there on Spotify, Steve Money's Take. It's entirely up to you. Which one do you prefer? Which one are you stronger at? Are you a stronger listener? Are you a stronger watcher? Are you, both? You could be both, all right? You could be one of those unique breeds who are good at both, all right? Today we got week 2 of college football, and, summarize it into small context. Week 1 was absolutely electric. No better way for the college football season to get off to any better start with a plethora of upsets. So many surprises. The ACC sort of on a downside collision right now with the uprising of the Miami Hurricanes, who are sort of causing a hurricane, pun fully intended, in the ACC conference, which is obviously taking all these other schools and sort of discombobulating everybody. Of course, you want to talk about so much crazy stuff going on. Hey, Penn State's got an offense. Colorado is one of the most amusing teams in college football. Georgia's still the number 1 team in the land. New administration over there in Tuscaloosa with Kayla and DeBoer getting off to a pretty strong start. Hey, man, it's a great season ahead of us, man. It's a great year ahead of us. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and dwell and indulge on these week 2 selections without getting too tangential. I would say that makes a pretty good cold opening. Pretty much a quick summary. The best way for me to be able to describe a lot of it into quick and easy context. But like I said, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. In our first matchup, out of the 5 games that we're going to be doing game selections for this week, is none other than the reigning champions, the Michigan Wolverines, hosting a home game against the high and mighty, up-and-coming Texas Longhorns, ladies and gentlemen, the newly acquired team with a likeness of their bitter rival Oklahoma in the SEC. And man, oh man, the spectacle not match itself in this ball game. Michigan, through the past 3 seasons, are undefeated in Ann Arbor. The last loss that they had was way back. You'd have to go back to 2020 to figure out the last time the Michigan Wolverines lost. Obviously, one of the most impeccable venues in college football. I just want to give them a complete shout-out. Michigan, with their immaculate, impeccable, look, all of the above when it comes to high praise adjectives, when it comes to describing the Michigan Wolverines over the past 3 seasons with Coach Jim Harbaugh, and obviously no better way to cap it off by winning the national title last year. We weren't really able to give them a lot of love and respect that we were able to do last year through the podcast because, we kind of stopped picking games by the time that the playoffs started beginning and really didn't have a prestigious opportunity to, congratulate Michigan. But hey, congratulations, perfect season, 15-0. I hope they've been able to relish and enjoy it because it's not an easy thing to win a national title, and it's damn well not easy to win every single football game. Even if you cheated a little bit, it's still not an easy thing to do. But obviously it's a new year. It's a new Michigan football team. As everybody well knows, 2024 here is upon us. So many teams already look a lot different starting out this season. I personally don't think the standards of excellency has transitioned or alterated when it comes to how Michigan plays football. I still think it's the same brand of football with Jim Harbaugh sort of just passing the baton to Sharon Moore, who, already has got a little bit of the Michigan faithful, a little bit sold on him, obviously beating the Buckeyes, taking them to the playoffs. He's already sort of got the fan base and some optimism with his coaching styles. Of course, if you watched the game last week, not the most shabbiest win over Fresno State. We'll get into a little bit more of that. But, dude, I tell you, this is going to be one of the most thrilling games of the week, watching that insane atmosphere there in Ann Arbor. This is a perfect game to have as one of the first games of the season. Obviously, reigning champions hosting one of the upcoming and ascending names in college football with the Texas Longhorns, who were a fabulous football team last year, winning the Big 12, and I think they're a very conceivable threat to win the SEC as well. We've gone on document saying that many times. Here's the thing, and a lot of people are comparing this ball game to when Texas had a very similar situation once upon a time ago last year when they marched into Bryant-Denny Stadium. And, well, you can go back and listen to it. I thought it was the unthinkable. I thought it was the unimaginable and the inconceivable notion that many people thought that Texas was going to go in there and beat Alabama and Bryant-Denny for the first time since Joe Burrow did it back in 2019. Well, here we are. They were the last team to win in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and, damn well, look, Quinn Ewers is a guy that is sort of that ice in his veins kind of quarterback, a guy that can march into any massive, full capacity of fans, yelling at you and getting under your grill kind of guy. And, of course, we have him ranked as the top 3 quarterback in college football. I think he's a good quarterback. I still think there's a lot of room of improvement, especially when it comes to durability. But let me tell you, it's not even close. It's not apples to apples when you compare Quinn Ewers to what Michigan has at quarterback. And what we saw last week out of Michigan with Davis Warren was completely agonizing to watch. Even as a neutral observer, it was purely agonizing to watch. I personally think they're starting the wrong quarterback. I think Alec Orji should be the starting quarterback under center for Michigan if they want the best possible chance to win. Now, of course, only time will tell. We will see what happens come time Saturday. But one thing is for damn sure is Quinn Ewers is the better quarterback. He's coming into this ball game with one of the absolute most loaded receiving tandems in college football, Isaiah Bond. You're coming into this thing with Silas Bolden from Oregon State, also a transfer. Matthew Golden, keeping it with the transfer thing from Houston. All these guys showed out last week in their home opener against Colorado State. All these guys showed their potential of what they're more than capable of doing. Now, however, it will be much more of an uphill battle when you got to play against one of the most lockdown capable cornerbacks and Will Johnson, a Michigan football team that may or may not be able to lock down as efficiently. Now, of course, I like Will Johnson. I think he's a super polarizing defensive back, but I don't think the depth is quite all there completely for Michigan in the back end of their defense. And I don't think it's the kind of depth that can be able to engulf what Texas has on the perimeter and, even what they got on the inside. They got a couple of slot receivers, not to cease to mention the tight end Amari Niblack as well. I think it would be difficult for Michigan to be able to play well in press coverage against these guys in a consistent rhythm in this ballgame, despite them having one of the best corners in America. That's a huge advantage that Texas has in this ballgame. Now, where Texas is disadvantaged, I think, is when it comes to running the football, trying to be a multi-flex offense. You're not going to do nothing against that furious defensive line there at Michigan. Mason Graham, I think, is the most unique defensive tackle I've seen Michigan have in a very long time. And they've had a few guys, right? They're staying true to that true nose tackle guy with Kenneth Grant, who stands up alongside Mason Graham on that defensive line. A couple of other veteran guys like a Derek Moore or a Josiah Stewart who playing that stand-up defensive end position. I like this run defense. I really do. And losing C.J. Baxter for the season, particularly losing him at the moment, sort of close to when you would have had the love having him in this ball game against Michigan's defense, is a real concern for me, man, because that's one thing Texas wishes that they could be able to do in this game is be multi-dimensional, not only throw the ball efficiently, but be able to tote that rock efficiently against this really incredible Michigan front seven that, man, you talk about their reputation that they have perceived this whole decade, even with Jim Harbaugh and those playoff and national championship team, is that it starts with the line of scrimmage, and it usually always ends with the line of scrimmage. And that's one thing you got to love about Michigan football. Now, however, on the flip side of the coin, it's also very optimistic when it comes to that line of scrimmage battle for Michigan as well. When you talk Donovan Edwards and Kalen Mullins, a guy that they're going to want to be able to utilize and pound the rock right down the throat of those Texas Longhorns. And, cover your ears, Texas fans. But, NFL kickoff is also this week. And, heads up, but Byron Murphy is suiting up in Seattle, and T'Vondre Sweat is suiting up with the Tennessee Titans, those highly sought-after defensive linemen that they had over there for the past year, obviously, are playing on Sundays. Now, it's no indictment to Texas's defensive line entirely. I think as bad as they are with their D-line, they make up for it with their pass rushers. Obviously, they got guys like Baron Sorrell, who's been around the program for a long time, and Trey Moore, the UTSA transfer. I think they can make up for it in that department. I still think Michigan is ultra physical in this ball game against Texas. And, Texas coming to the SEC, you got to sort of grow accustomed to some physical style football teams. That's what Georgia's going to be like. That's what a few other teams are going to be like. So they got to sort of carry a game plan like they're going to have planned for Michigan in this game over to when they start SEC play. So, yeah, I think Edwards is going to have a good game. I think Kalen Mullen could sort of be an unsung hero for the Wolverines' running attack as well. But here's where I draw the line. Is this quarterback play, man? I mean, we saw a taste of it last week, and it was a real, I'm not even going to say salty taste. It was a real sour taste. It was a real, one of those cringy, sour taste that you just, it's sort of hard to get off of your tongue, where you sort of just got to sort of like brush it off of you. It was that fucking bad, okay? They were not efficient at all against Fresno State. In fact, I don't know if they would have come out of that game fully alive if it wasn't for that Will Johnson interception late. So if they're starting Davis Warren at quarterback, I know that they're in for a long day. Now, however, Sherrone Moore could prove us all wrong. He could say, look, I'm selling Texas to believe that we're playing a pocket passing quarterback when I'm going to throw Alec Orji in there as a dual threat guy and totally throw this defense off guard. I can only base the analysis upon what I've seen so far. Reason of which being I'm picking Texas to win the ball game. I love Michigan's chances in this game. I don't think there are any pushover in this ball game just because Jim Harbaugh's not on the sideline or just because you don't have J.J. McCarthy as your quarterback. Oh, boo-hoo, right? I think Alec Orji is a capable quarterback from Michigan. I think he's the better option. And unless they go with him Saturday, I know fully well that Texas is going to be able to outplay you at the quarterback position. And I just don't think you're going to get the fireworks going in the passing game. And therefore, I cannot pick Texas to lose this game to Michigan. It's been a great run, but I think the Michigan Wolverines, with their immaculate 30-plus wins in Ann Arbor, is going to come to a seemingly ignominious end come noon time on Saturday. So, unfortunately, I think Michigan's going to fall to the hands of Texas, and their win streak at home is going to be snapped. I got the Longhorns winning this game. All right, our next matchup, coming out of the ACC, which we mentioned it. The ACC is sort of, that pun that we use. I really love it. I want to use it again. The Miami Hurricanes are sort of sending a hurricane into every single team's forecast. It seems so far so early in the season for all these other ACC teams. Damn, Florida State 0-2. Clemson looked abysmal. Really nobody else really opposes as a challenge. I like that Virginia Tech football team despite losing to Vanderbilt, but man, having that bad taste in your mouth definitely doesn't help their reputation going forward, at least for now. But the team that's sort of riding with momentum is Georgia Tech, and they got a game right here against Syracuse in the Dome. This is going to be a good game. I think a lot more to the chagrin of many. I think a lot of people have all of a sudden jumped on board with the Georgia Tech hype train. However, I may not want to say push the brakes to that exactly, but you might want to be sort of careful with how far you take that thing, how far that you're traveling. Okay, see how far your wheels can get you. Like I said, Georgia Tech is favored in this ball game. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the point spread is at 3. I'm not entirely sure. Don't correct me on that. Yeah. Look, here's the thing about this game. I do like a lot of what Georgia Tech does offensively. Don't get me wrong. Good game plan against Florida State. But there are a few dilemmas that aren't particularly when it comes to their offense. I think it's more so that defense. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I think Jamal Haynes is going to be running furious in this game, like he's been. I think he's a very underrated player, one of the better rushers in the ACC conference. I like Eric Singleton matching up against these Syracuse outside perimeter corners. Just like we said with the Texas game, I think they can be able to out-leverage and out-advantage these guys. I even think Rutherford, the other guy, sort of finds himself a little bit of a role in this ball game. Haynes King, to me, I'm not saying that he is the nail in the coffin for Georgia Tech's offense to be one of the most elites of the game, but it doesn't help that he's not the most efficient guy, and he wasn't efficient last year, and there's nothing that's going to convince me entirely that's going to bring me to the conclusion that he's going to be more efficient this season. Syracuse doesn't have the most elite defense. In fact, they don't have, obviously, the most elite talent at all, in contrary to, some of your elite tier programs. I do like Fidel Diggs off the edge. I think he's going to have a sensational season for Syracuse. I think he could be an attributing factor in this particular ball game against Haynes King in that passing attack. So that's something to look out for and monitor. Now, let's talk on the opposite side of the ball because my, oh my. Georgia Tech's defense is complete shit, and I have no hesitation in my voice saying that. They are completely pathetic. Now, we've seen how pretty bad Florida State's offense has been within 2 games, and to think that game came down to a field goal tells me a lot of what I just need to know. They were one of the bottom 100 defenses in college football last year. I don't see much that's going to persuade me into believing that they're going to ascend or be a lot better this season. And one thing a lot of people got to realize about Syracuse is, well, they're a football team that's got sort of a trio attack on offense. It's led out by LaQuint Allen, their running back. It's led out by Aronde Gadsden, their super versatile tight end that they have. And hey, remember the name Kyle McCord, who played at Ohio State last year? A guy that we had a lot of problems and said that he wasn't an elite quarterback. But damn, let me tell you this. He is a good field general quarterback. He's coming off a game where he threw the ball 35 times against Ohio. You know what? I've said what I've said about McCord countless times. I think when it comes to managing a ball game, he's got to be one of the better ones in the sport. Okay, and we've seen guys like those guys succeed, unless they're playing against an uberly elite defense, which is not the case with Georgia Tech this coming week. Then I think these guys could have efficient ball games. I'm picking Syracuse to win this ball game. I don't think they'll cover the spread against Georgia Tech, however. I think this is going to be an ultra-competitive ball game, but until a lot of things can persuade me otherwise. And let me tell you, man, Syracuse is not an easy place to play in. That dome, the Carrier Dome, is no joke, man. I think it gets under Georgia Tech's skin in this ball game. I think they've got to realize that this defense needs a lot of adjustments. It needs a lot of discipline if they want to be able to somehow carry with the momentum that they've started the season off with and somehow contend in the ACC. It's not going to work when your defense is ass. All right? Sorry, not sorry, but we're taking the cutes in somewhat of an upset in this ball game to knock off Georgia Tech. Now, like I said, close game, taking Syracuse to win. All right, so these next 2 games are really awesome ball games, but for our third game, I want to keep it within the ACC. I'm still going to keep it within a team in the top 25. Just bear with me. We're not going outside of the top 25. That's something we don't typically do here, if ever, on this channel. And let's talk about Clemson for a little bit because, I'm sorry, Dabo or Dumbo or whatever I want to call you. We'll stick to Dumbo Sweeney until a little bit of some change occurs to Clemson's football team. We're still going to stick with that really awesome alias that I've got picked out there for you. They got Appalachian State coming into their home stadium, and of course, I'll be the first one to admit I don't know too much about App State's football team this season, and contrary to what I have seen their football be able to do in the past, it's sort of that past reputation of Appalachian State. One reason why we picked this as one of the games that we're going to be picking from this coming week. Yeah, let me just get one thing abundantly clear. I think it's pretty obvious the dilemmas at Sequib and Clemson. I've talked at nauseum about it. Dabo is too reluctant to the transfer portal. He's too ignorant to go out and pursue a guy who's going to be able to immediately impact that football team. There's so many times I've said it before, and I will continue to say it until the end of time. Dude, somewhere in college football, there is a guy who's a 1,000-yard receiver in every single offseason who would be willing to join the Clemson Tigers and someday pursue possible national championship aspirations. Not just ACC titles, man, which really they've been able to do that, but returning to the playoffs and contending has not happened this decade. And let me tell you, it's not going to change until Dabo Swinney adapts to contemporary concepts of college football. Now, of course, it's not the only problem. I know their run defense got gashed last week, but I think they'll be back to normality this coming week. But man, Cade Klubnik sucks. And you know what? Maybe because we shit on this guy and we were shitting on him last year, maybe this is going to be fuel to the fire for a guy like Cade Klubnik. Chances of him watching this right now are incredibly slim to none. But damn, you are a 5-star flop. You got the guy, Garrett Riley, calling the plays for your offense, who was one of the hot commodities coming off of that TCU outstanding season they had in 22. The play caller for that football team who sort of resurrected Max Duggan into looking like one of the better quarterbacks in the nation. Cade Klubnik has showed me nothing against Georgia. Showed me he's not a guy that can be able to duel with Carson Beck. Never showed me nothing last year. Interesting to see what he's going to do against Appalachian State in this ballgame. Can Clemson find an outside perimeter pass catcher who differentiates himself, who sort of establishes himself as their alpha dog? Because right now, look, Brandon Sewell is your best pass catcher. He's a check down possessional tight end. I think he's one of the better in America at that. You still got Phil Moffitt, running back, a really good, when utilized running back who can gash a defense. And let me reiterate, I don't want to sound like I know fully of what I'm talking about when, I don't know much about Appalachian State's football team. I don't know fully and entirely what they bring to the table. Like we said, it's all built upon what we've seen these kind of teams do in the past. And they've been a great program. They've been a program to upset Texas A&M in Kyle Field, who's one of the most revered home fields in all of college football. I do know this, is that Appalachian State has a lot of good players. They got a lot of good players who are no strangers to being efficient players. I think Joey Aguilar, or whatever his name is, I'm sorry that I totally just butchered that entirely, is not a terrible quarterback. Who the hell is to say he's not better than Cade Klubnik, of course. I think this is a football team. I can't necessarily go as far to say that they're going to be able to lock down Clemson's offense. In fact, it's no more better of an opportunity for Clemson's offense to bounce back than against Appalachian State. They were one of the worst run defenses in college football last year, 110th ranked in the nation. It could be a good opportunity for Phil Moffitt to sort of take the load off of Cade Klubnik in this ball game, be able to get the ball out quickly to Jake Brenningsul, and, for God's sake, Cade, do something with your opportunity. I got a lot of respect for this Clemson's defense. One of the best front sevens of college football. I know Appalachian State is going to want to try to bomb the ball against them, very much like Carson Beck did. I think Clemson's defense is pretty disciplined, and they're one of the better units in the nation, have consistently been one of those. I will pick Clemson to win. I think the point spread is at 17.5. I'm tempted to say the under, so I'm going to go with the under. I think it's going to be a closely competitive football game. Could be all the way up until the fourth quarter, until one of these teams can be able to break away from each other. But I think the Clemson's defense, so many times that we've said in the past, I think they're going to be able to help them prevail to a victory in this ball game and be able to get a I can't say quality win, but I can say get themselves a home victory without falling into the hands of the App State guys. All right, let's talk about one of the most underrated rivalries in college football that's going to be played this coming Saturday. Iowa and Iowa State. Point spread in this ball game. Oh, man. I don't remember what it is. I think it's super low. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the point spread of the ball game is 3. Like it's either that or it's a whole entire 7. I think it might be 7 on the point spread. Like I said, don't fact check me on that, but I think it's a touchdown point spread. Games obviously in Connect Stadium. For some reason, I can't remember exactly why Kirk Ferentz was suspended for last week's game, but he's coming back this week. And whoopee fucking do, right? With their brand new look offense, as a lot of people are sort of overrating and overhyping this Iowa offense in this ball game. Me, of which not being the most sold on what they've got offensively. I like Iowa State a lot in this ball game. In fact, I'm just give a little spoiler right away. But I'm not sold on McNamara. I've never been sold on this guy. I don't know why they're still riding with this guy. I think eventually at some point in the season, if you're dropping a lot of games and the offense is not doing anything, I think you've got to have a little bit of a change of the guard. You got to sort of move over to that guy, Brendan Sullivan, who they got through the portal from Northwestern, who started a few games for them. I think Hayden McNamara doesn't do anything in this ball game. And, you know, a lot of people think that for some reason, just because they scored 40 against an Illinois State football team means Iowa has a scoring offense. I'm here to tell you that's still a long shot for me. That's still too much of a stretch of the margin to say that they're going to be a prolific offense for the remainder of the season. You can't get much worse than being the worst. They were 130th, rock bottom of all of college football. But I'm not saying that they're going to escape being a bad offense. I still think they're a bad offense. And in fact, worse news for them, I think this is a terrible disadvantage matchup against this Iowa State defense, which I really love. I picked Iowa State to win the Big 12 this season. I'm incredibly high on Iowa State's football team this season. Love almost everything that they've got on both sides of the football, especially when it comes to this run defense. And that's one premier strength that Iowa can write home about is their running game with LaShawn Williams and Caleb Jackson. But, dude, I really love what this defense has got. Caleb Bacon, those big physical guys on Joey Peterson, senior 6'4" defensive end. I love what this Iowa State Cyclones defense can do against the run. And I think they're going to sort of pigeonhole Caden McNamara in this ballgame to force him to have to be able to distribute the football down the field. And I don't think he is. I don't know who the fuck he is going to throw the football to because I don't have any trust he's going to be able to throw the football in this ballgame without getting, throwing ill-advised passes. Let's talk about the other side of the football because I think it's a totally contrary story to what Iowa's dilemma is. I love Rocco Beck. I really do. I thought about this literally early this morning before I went to work. I said, there's something about Iowa State quarterbacks feeling very, very underrated, feeling sort of, in a lot of ways, sort of disregarded by a lot of people. Brock Purdy, I think, was the same way, and then he sort of elevated himself into a great quarterback. Obviously, he still was Mr. Irrelevant, but he accomplished a lot as his time at Iowa State. I think Rocco Beck is on the same pace, the same trajectory. I know that he was not their quarterback in their loss last year against Iowa. I think they were starting that other dude at quarterback. I'm not entirely sure. But even then that loss to Iowa last year in their home stadium is definitely going to be eating at the core of the Cyclones in this ballgame. I think Rocco is going to be a much more efficient quarterback in this ballgame. I think the fact that you got Sama, the running back, I think he's sort of an underlooked player as well. I think Iowa's going to do a good job on that defense when it comes to matching up perimeterly against guys like Jaden Higgins and Jalen Old, the top pass catchers for Iowa State. But look, I'm just going to make it short and cute. I think this is a very low-scoring ball game, as this ball game never ceases to disappoint to be. I think it's one of the most fun games in college football. I mean, you're not a true fan of the sport if you think Iowa State and Iowa is an overrated ball game every year. It's always closely competitive, almost 9 times out of 10. I think Iowa State's going to win. I really do. I think they're going to cover over the spread also. There's a tremendous amount of confidence I have in this Iowa State football team to go a very long way this season. Initially, in the offseason, I had Iowa State dropping this game to Iowa for some whatever more reason. I have no self-explanatory reasoning for. But the more I think about it now that the season has gotten here, I think they're going to win. I full-on believe that they're going to win this ball game and that Rocco Beck is going to be the true hero of the day and totally outperform Cade McNamara. I got a lot of full-on trust in that, man. I like this kid, Rocco Beck. He's a kid I root for a lot, and I think Iowa State is going to win this game and ultimately have a fabulous year. I think when it's all said and done, they'll be right there in the college football playoff or Big 12 conversation. All right, finally, our last game in the slate of ball games. Neutral site action between the Tennessee Volunteers and the NC State Wolfpack. Now, to me, I'm going to be completely honest. There's a deliberate reason why I chose this as the last game to pick. Because in my opinion, this is the most difficult game to pick of all the games that we got. And it really is it's so damn hard because once more, it's another neutral site football game in college football. The past couple of ones this past week, such as Georgia and Clemson, I obviously knew Georgia was going to win that ball game. They outright decimated Clemson. Hello, no surprise, right? But now this one right here is much more of a pure flip of the coin because there's a lot I like about both teams. I think both these teams, very synonymous to USC and LSU, are deadlock even apiece. This is a true 50-50 battle. I will obviously make a game pick because that's what we're here for. Tennessee's favored. Most of your SEC fans and SEC viewers are going to pick Tennessee in this ballgame. Hell, may even throw a little bit of money in this game as well. Especially to Nico Lemvivia. I hope to God I said that right. Props to me if I did. If he breaks out in this ballgame and plays like the quarterback that so many people have sought him after the B, I've heard a lot of buzz in the offseason saying, hey, 5-star kid at Tennessee, man, he might be better than Hendon Hooker. He might have that Joe Milton form arm. He might be Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker put together into one crazy good quarterback. Of course, we can't base our analysis upon week 1 against Chattanooga, but this is a real test for him to be able to prove how elite of that 5-star status that he's carrying. And look, I'm going to be honest. Damn well he could be a really good quarterback. Heupel is one of the absolute best at coaching quarterbacks of any college coach in the entire college football landscape. I think he will have a pretty good game against NC State because somewhat of the way, like everybody else, I buy into the hype. Especially when it comes with Josh Heupel calling the plays. I also really love the Tennessee depth at wide receiver. Squirrel White is their most experienced wide receiver. Burt McCoy's back from the injury. But the guy I really like in this ballgame is Deontay Thornton. And that one just, to me, screams a quietly good night for the Tennessee offensive passing game when it comes to distributing the football to him. I think NC State, obviously not quite the athletes, maybe not quite the guys that they would want in the back end of their defense, but I think Tennessee's got a lot of depth. I really do. I think they can go very wide against most teams in college football. I like Dylan Sampson at running back as well. I think he's a high-ceiling guy. He's got a lot to prove this season as being an elite runner for Tennessee. I like him in this ballgame as well. But very much I do emphatically love what you got with Grayson McCall at quarterback over there at NC State as well. Obviously a long-time Chanticleer over there at Coastal Carolina. Put up monster numbers, man. Monster numbers for Coastal Carolina. I thought he had a good initial first game for NC State last week as well. I don't think Tennessee's defense is going to have any answers for Grayson McCall. I think experience is big for the NC State quarterback in this ball game. I think his target, Kevin Concepcion, is a guy that maybe a lot of the SEC viewers don't know, but a lot of your ACC viewers and listeners might know the name Kevin Concepcion. Sort of reminds me of that Debo Samuel type S-tier player, big physical guy who can catch passes down the field, can also do a little bit of gadgety stuff when it comes to running the football. I love what you got with Concepcion. In fact, I really don't like Tennessee's defense at all. I think their defense is pretty dog shit, if you really want to know the honest-to-God truth. I think they're one of the worst defenses in all of the SEC. I don't like what they've got in that back end of the defense. I don't like into a way, I mean, they maybe not go as deep, but I do not like Tennessee's chances against NC State's pass catchers on the perimeter as much as we said about Tennessee's versus NC State's. But ultimately, this is a fabulous ball game that we have here. Dave Doran, I think, is one of the most underappreciated coaches in college football. I think Josh Heupel, obviously, fabulous coach, has proven everything good so far at Tennessee. I think he's bringing in some superb offensive talent as he has done so far and making a lot of optimism sort of rise in Knoxville, Tennessee. Really, since that 22 season, there's always been a real spark for Tennessee football ever since he's been their head football coach. Of course, it's a neutral site game, and this is where it's really difficult for me because you play this game in Knoxville in prime time, I'm picking Tennessee. Maybe even playing this game at NC State, I'd even like NC State's chances. I think it really would be a big-time deal if it was a home field atmosphere. It's in Charlotte. It's Bank of America Stadium where the Carolina Panthers lose a lot of football games on Sundays. Sometimes when it comes to these situations, I love to look to the turnover differential for both teams. Obviously, we only have a very small margin of sample sizes that we can base our analysis upon because there's only been one game played thus far this season. I feel like Tennessee is pretty comfortably favored in this ball game. I feel like it would be a real good curveball thrower if I was to say that NC State's going to win this ball game. I think Tennessee is going to win. I will pick the Vols in this ball game, and I'm going to tell you the exact reason why. In modern college football, and just the way that the offense is ran at Tennessee, depth at wide receiver has proven to be elite, especially in a Josh Heupel offense. I don't think they've had depth to this extremity since they once had Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman out there at wide receivers playing pass catchers. Yeah, give me Tennessee in this ball game. I don't think they cover the spread, though. Spread is at 2.5. Love that number. Actually, I think I'm going to change. I think that Tennessee will cover over the spread. The more I think about it, I don't think it's going to be a down-the-bare-wire kind of football game. Now that there's a 2-minute warning in college football, I think if Tennessee has possession of that football, maybe they're down against NC State. I think they're a football team that you can almost positively bet is going to go down the field and score and get those 7 points on the scoreboard. Give me the Vols in this ball game. Close game. Cover the spread. Tennessee's going to win. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is, like I said, week 2. Very awesome season of college football ahead of us. This is your best coverage for all things college football game picks. Obviously, last week we weren't able to upload, but to be able to give you a little bit of what our records were like last week, we had the record of, I believe it was, I'm trying to look at it right now. I think it was with the 5 games we did. I think we lost 3. I think we were 2-3 last week. Not the chappiest, not a flex, I'll tell you that. But hopefully we can do a lot better this week. It is your host, Steven Trader, bringing you guys this exclusive content as always with every single week. Love you guys so much. Love so much of the fan support. Everyone that listens to this channel, I hope you are blessed today. I hope you have an amazing week, and I hope you enjoy your college football Saturdays. Peace out and love to all.